Thank you, and welcome to the Wednesday, October 17th meeting of the Easthampton City Council. Could I have a roll call, please?
Justin Cobb.
Present.
Don Psychowski.
Here.
Salem Derby.
Present.
Dan Hagan.
Present.
Joseph McCoy.
Here.
Chet Ogalevitz.
Present.
Dan Rist.
Here.
Joy Winnie. Nathan Ziegler.
Present.
Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting?
Moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any amendments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or objections? Seeing none, okay. That said, the third item is public speak time. If there's anybody in the public who would like to speak to us about anything that's currently not on our public hearing agenda, please step forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
How you doing? I'm Patrick Bruff from 107 Brigg Street. I'm here to tell you, City Council, about some of the events that are going to be happening over the next few weeks that the Chamber of Commerce is going to be putting on. October 22nd is a celebrity bartending event that's going on at Opa Opa. This benefit is something that we do that helps put the lights up in the city of Easthampton during the holiday season. So that's an event that's going on October 22nd. We have several guest pourers, if you will. Some of the names I'm sure you'll know. The next event is not a chamber event. However, I would like to just give a shout out to the Rag Shag Parade. That's a great event that goes on here in the city of Easthampton. That's done by the Parks and Rec Department. That is on Wednesday the 24th. Another event that is held to help light up the city is our annual bowl-a-thon. This is a chamber event that is November 3rd. Love to see a city council team of bowlers out there. So if you guys are interested, let me know. We'll get you some information. Our networking by night for November is November 8th, and it's at the Northeast Center for Youth and Family Services, which is out on East Street. And last, the Holiday Stroll, which is November 30th. That's another great event where we turn on the lights for the holidays. So I just wanted to let everybody know that those events are going to be coming up in the near future. You can find any of them at easthamptonchamber.org or on our Facebook page. Head over and like us, and you can get the information there as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the audience who would like to step forward and speak to the City Council on any item that's not currently on our public hearing agenda? Please do so. State your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Kim Finch. I live at 20 High Street, and I'm a volunteer with the Sierra Club. And I just wanted to come and speak to you guys tonight about the Mount Tom coal plant. I had asthma when I was a kid, and then I grew out of it and didn't have it for many years. But when I moved to the valley last year, my asthma came back. And I found out that the Mount Tom coal plant actually puts out sulfur dioxide pollution into the valley that causes asthma and asthma attacks. So that's kind of scary for me, as you can imagine. I also found out that the Mount Tom plant operates without an air permit. So what I would like to ask the council is if you guys would be willing to reach out to Governor Patrick to ask him to issue a new permit for the coal plant so that it complies with all current clean air standards. I have a letter here that I drafted that I would like to leave with you guys that you could just sign and pass along.
Sure. Leave it with the clerk, and she'll make sure we all get a copy.
Plenty of copies. Thank you very much.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to step forward?
I'll wait until this is done.
Okay. Name and address for the record, please.
John Mason, Parks and Rec Director. Thank you to the Chamber for giving us the shout out on the Rag Shag Parade. That's what I wanted to let everybody know. When I was here last meeting, we talked a lot about the Pumpkin Fest, which is Saturday, October 27th. But we have the Rag Shag coming up on the 24th, next Wednesday, with the rain date of Thursday, the 25th. Last year we had record numbers, and we're hoping to have that tradition continue. And then don't forget the 27th with the Pumpkin Fest. We have the dog show that day. We have bands, food, games for the kids, inflatables, face painting, all kinds of things. So it should be a great community event. So hope we can see you guys there. I'll buy some flyers for that as well.
Bring your own pumpkin, right?
Bring your own pumpkin.
Bring your own pumpkin.
I don't get a pumpkin?
I'll just leave it with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
For those present, I'd like you to note the bears around the room, just to let you know we're being watched by an elite group here. Councilor Rist, did you want to say anything?
Yes, I find Mrs. Finch's issue quite compelling, and I'd like to move that it be sent to the Rules and Government Relations Committee for review with a possible conclusion of a resolution from the City Council.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to move the aforementioned request to Rules and Government Relations for consideration and review. Any further comment on the motion?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes. Well done. That said, we're still in public speak. If there's anybody who would like to come forward and address the city council on any issue that's currently not on our public hearing agenda, please step forward, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, we'll move on to communications from elected officials, boards and committees and correspondence. Councilor McCoy.
Okay, thank you. I'll start off with our, actually, first official communication from the planning board. This will be discussed again during the public hearings, but we did get a letter from the planning board in reference to proposed changes to city ordinances, City Ordinance 11.12, regarding pre-existing non-conforming single-family and two-family residential structures. Essentially, the planning board 5-0 in favor of the proposed change, and would hope the city council will support this change. Again, this more discussion will come up during the public hearing. As far as correspondence, a big reminder to people that this is the last day to register to vote. The city offices are open till 8 o'clock tonight, so this is later than usual. You have time to get down there and still register to vote if you want to vote in the November 6th election. So please remember to do that if you're not registered. We have a public forum notice that the City of Easthampton, the Planning Department, will hold a public forum to prepare and present the 2013 through 2015 Community Development Strategy, which details the city's community development needs and establishes a priority list for implementation and funding of community development projects. It's a great way for citizens to get involved in how the city planning, what it will look like and what their views for the future of Easthampton. That will run Tuesday, October 30th from 6 p.m. Municipal Office, second floor meeting room, 50 Payson Avenue. If you have any more questions, I'm sure you can either contact the city clerk or our city planner, Jessica Allen. So again, that's the forum on the city planning on October 30th. Last, I think Patrick mentioned it, but I'll just throw out another shout out to the Bowl-a-thon. That's Saturday, November 3rd. It benefits the downtown Easthampton holiday lights, and we've always been very fortunate in this town to have the chamber do such a great job with the lights. So if you can certainly support that, please try to attend. And I believe that's it in my communications.
Thank you. Mayor's communication. Mayor Tosnick?
About correspondence.
It was in there too.
He was in there too. He did both at the same time.
All right, I'll bring that up. Thank you, Mr. President. Although there's not anything formal on your agenda, you did notice some additions to the meeting room tonight. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. The bear behind you is Gilda-Bear. That is being kept on display here at 50 Payson Avenue. The owner is Peter Gunn, the chairman of the school committee, which is why it has a place up here on the second floor where the school department operates from. These two bears out in front of you is Day of the Dead Bear, and this is Artist Bear. These bears are subject to a receipt of a gift that you have on your agenda this evening. They were donated by Kevin Maloney. These bears are on tour. So their next stop is going to be Artist Bear at the Historic Town Hall, Day of the Dead Bear at the Rotary, thanks to the good graces of the Park and Rec Department. They are available to be put on display in any place that's publicly accessible, which could mean a restaurant or whatever if it's open to the public during business hours, that sort of thing, on a rotating monthly basis. So we want to keep them out in front of the folks here in town, and they were donated to the city for that purpose. And so just if you know anyone who might be interested, contact ECA Plus, and we'll set up a schedule for the bears, and the bears can be at your place of business or your lawn if it happens to be downtown or someplace that's pretty easy to see for 30 days at a time. And so that's really been it's a great gift to the city, and it's going to allow us to start a program that we've been thinking about a little bit here and there, but of course didn't have the wherewithal to do because we didn't have the bears to put out. Speaking of gifts, I wanted to say a personal thanks to Easthampton Savings Bank. Those of you that may have been in any of the city's municipal offices over the last couple of weeks may have noticed some new looking furniture, certainly new to us furniture, but Easthampton Savings Bank was very gracious and very generous with their used furniture when they were moving out of their Main Street location, and they didn't have a use for it in the new space, and so they gave it up, and we took a lot of it. My assistant Karen is to be commended for taking the initiative to go in as much depth as we did. When I went over, I picked 3 things. And when we got done, you saw the list. There must be 25 things that we ended up getting. It was wonderful. The 27th, the dog show is at noon. I really do recommend that you go. I'll be emceeing this show for this is my second stint at doing that, and maybe it's my career next, who knows? But it's always a good time. I just wanted to mention, although I know Councilor Hagan is right on top of this, but you have a little over $800,000 worth of funding requests in front of you tonight. A few of them are time sensitive because of the recap needs, and the councilor will talk to you about those, but I hope you support his efforts to move them fairly quickly. That's it, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Psychowski, did you have anything for correspondence you wanted to mention?
Yeah, we all received a letter from Norman Roy, and I just wanted to acknowledge that we received a letter from Mr. Roy. And I'd like to say, after reading his letter, we need more citizens like him in Easthampton that are paying attention to what's going on. Thank you. But if you want me to read the letter, I'd read it.
Several pages.
It is several pages long. I've actually read it myself.
No, I mean, I just want to acknowledge that we received it.
Okay, excellent. Every member here has received this letter?
Yes.
Okay? You didn't?
It's in the boxes downstairs.
We'll get Barb a copy and put it in the record then. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Excellent. That said, I'd like to move on to we have a couple minutes left. Committee reports, Rules and Government Relations, Councilor Rist.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The request before us of MGL Chapter 32B, we concluded discussions last night and are prepared. We will try to I will hand out a report to the full council it'll be in your packets prior to the November 7th meeting when there's a public hearing. This is an important discussion, so I wanted to give everybody a sense of where the Rules Committee came from prior to it. So that's, there is a public hearing already scheduled November 7th in these chambers for it. Thank you, Mr. President. That is all.
Okay. Finance, Councilor Hagan.
Just a couple of things. Obviously, I'll have several under new business. The one tax classification we're going to take up in a public hearing. Senior exemptions, we're still had further discussion, and we'll keep that on the agenda for the time being. And at this time, I'd like to at least announce the next subcommittee meeting, which will be next Wednesday, October 24th at 6 p.m. in room 1. That's it for finance till new business.
Okay. Councilor McCoy, Public Safety.
No report for public safety.
Excellent. Since Councilor Wing is here,
I can do it.
Councilor McCoy, appointments, please.
Yes, thank you. The Appointments Committee met tonight. We had 3 mayoral appointments. Jerry Jennings for the Conservation Commission, Brown Ann Hodgkinson for ECA Plus, and J. Laurel Pellis for Commission on Disability. The committee discussed and voted 2-0 in favor of these mayoral appointments. So in the form of a motion, I would like to make a motion to accept the mayoral appointments of Jerry Jennings, Conservation Commission, term ending December 31st, 2014. Brown and Hodgkinson, ECA Plus, term ending December 31st, 2014. J. Laurel Pellis, Commission on Disability, ending December 31st, 2014.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to accept the following appointments as previously noted. Are there any further comments on this motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or objections? Councilor McCoy, you still have the floor.
And until new business, I think that's the next meeting will be at 5:45 in these chambers. And what's the
November 7th.
November 7th.
Okay.
Thank
That
you.
concludes?
That concludes. Thank you.
Okay, could I have a motion to enter into public hearing, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to enter into public hearing. Is there any further comment on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? None? The first, Councilor Derby, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first item we have on the agenda is requests for over quota liquor license for 2 locations, one being Popcorn Noir on Cottage Street and Riff's Joint on Pleasant Street. And after the subcommittee reviewed the requests for the over quota licenses, we felt that it made sense to support small businesses in Easthampton, to help them be more profitable and help them be more successful, to allow them to have a tool that can help them in that venture. And so after deliberation and after looking at how we had gone through the process with the last one that we did recently with Casey Douglas for his new location, we felt it prudent to move forward. And we voted 2-0 to support both applications for over quota licenses. So I'd be happy to open it up for questions or.
Okay, is there any member of the public who would like to step forward and speak to this, this particular issue? State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Kristen Davis. I live at 18 Pepin Ave. I am also co-owner with my husband Thomas Doherty of Popcorn Noir. And I appreciate your time and consideration on this, and I'm happy to field any questions that you have about our business, our plans, or our request.
Do any of the councilors have any questions? Hearing none, you're welcome to continue if you have anything else you want to say, or
No, I think I'm
Okay.
good. Yeah.
are there any further members of the public who'd like to step forward?
So there's no confusion, I'm ready to sign this as soon as you vote it. Thank you.
Yep. Please step forward. I will ask you for the record to state who you are, though.
I planned on it. My name's John Syback, and although I don't live in Easthampton, I represent Easthampton in the General Court. The only reason I'm here, I'm certainly going to follow and act on this as quickly as possible. If you decide to go forward, then I would urge you to use the same language you did in the last one. There have been some problems in the past in terms of the language, in terms of getting it through the legislature. Although we're in informal session, there should be no problem getting both of these approved prior to the end of the year. I think what we've indicated to both of the applicants is there'll be a public hearing. The Joint Committee on Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure will have a hearing. They will expect the applicants to come in. It should go smoothly, but there have been some problems with other communities in terms of the language that they've used. Obviously, we had no problem with that last one, so I trust your clerk and your president to ensure that the language is the same language we use, and that should make sure there's no problem.
Thank you.
Could I ask Councilor question?
Councilor Rist.
John, I'm certainly in favor of this, and it makes a lot of sense. But I am concerned about something, and I wonder if you can enlighten the council. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we have quota licenses that cost the owners thousands and thousands of dollars to get by from a different owner, et cetera. Yet these over quota licenses cost very little comparatively. It seems very unfair to me to those owners that spend so much money to get a license. I'm wondering if the legislature has taken this up. It seems to me there should be level playing field for everybody. Perhaps the quota licenses are just too high and they should all be one, so the over quota license costs the same as the quota license. Can you enlighten us on that?
Yeah, no, we actually believe that what we've done is level the playing field. There's a substantial difference between a traditional license and an over quota license. If you purchased a traditional license, and you've had several of these in the community that have changed hands, in that particular situation, that license is an asset. It's a pledgeable asset, and many restaurants and bars have actually utilized that as collateral in terms of some of the financing they've received because of the value of the license. The difference with an over-quota license is you don't have that flexibility. So Popcorn Noir will not be able to sell that license to someone else. If this restaurant is such a booming success and they want to move it to another location, that license does not apply in that new location. Whereas if you purchase the license, you could go and simply apply for a transfer and say, okay, I want to take my license from this particular building and move it somewhere else. I want to sell it to someone. So in that respect, the license doesn't have the inherent value that a traditional within quota license does. And what we've seen over the last few years is a growing recognition on the part of businesses. Initially, businesses objected, and I heard objections here in Easthampton with a former license, an over quota license in the past. I heard it in South Hadley. And when you explain it and look at it, it clearly there is a distinction. And so as a result, the charge and the cost of that license to Popcorn and to Riffs is far less than it would be in terms of purchasing a license, but they don't have the flexibility that they would with those other licenses.
Thank you.
I think it's a very good question. I'm
Makes me
glad you
much
raised
more
it so the
comfortable
public
on
can.
it. Thank you very much.
Councilor McCoy?
Representative Sybeck. So actually, did you have legislation submitted to do away with the?
Yes.
I take it in committee somewhere?
There is a look, and there's been legislation filed to say maybe the legislature, the general court should get out of this business in its entirety. Should a community determine how many licenses are appropriate? And the issue also becomes one, and we certainly experienced it in terms of problems that we've had with the Department of Revenue. I mean, there were 2 phone calls in my office today regarding licenses. Personally, I think that a community should be able to determine what makes sense. You would then have to wrestle with that fact of the number of licenses and is there equity between the over quota and the other? Because if we get out of it, we essentially would eliminate the quotas based on population. Other states, I was in Wisconsin a couple of weeks ago, and you go through some communities, it seems as though there's an establishment selling beer, wine, and spirits on virtually every street corner, and clearly they're not engaging in the same number as we are here. We're wrestling with another issue, and that is for the public and for your edification. Individual corporations or businesses are allowed to hold a total of 3 licenses across the state, and that had the way it was in the past. So the one I always hear about is Trader Joe's. Why can I buy beer and wine at Trader Joe's in Brookline and Cambridge and Framingham, and I can't buy it in Hadley? Because Trader Joe's has 3 licenses. We've now expanded that. I believe it's 5 that are now available this year, and is going to move up again in the future. Just like many of our other things that go back to the blue laws, you know, and those things have changed. I mean, we can all recall when we weren't selling alcohol on Sundays, when we weren't selling it during the holidays. There have been changes there, and there may well be changes coming down the pike in terms of this.
And have you found the mood on the Hill favorable to these? I mean, obviously we get some of the kickback about pay for licenses, even though they're different, and the first license I think essentially was free. But from what kind of feedback you hear from the State House, is the Senate and House still very receptive of these? Matter of fact, and correct me, am I wrong, didn't South Hadley even just assign a bunch to an area they wanted to have developed? Did they
there was one situation they looked at in terms of an area, and I think personally, whether we're talking liquor license or something else, I'm a strong believer in terms of local control. I don't believe that decisions should be made 90 miles from here in terms of what's best for the city of Easthampton. I represent you as a community, but I don't live in this community, and I don't think it's appropriate nor proper for me to be making decisions on this community, since I don't live in this community without the input, and I'd rather leave it at the local level. So I think there is some receptivity in terms of moving in that direction, and I would hope that we will see more of that, next session and sessions coming forward.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, is there any other member of the public who would like to come forward and speak to this issue and address the council? Please do so, and just state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I move on, I just want to acknowledge that the licensing board did approve or endorse with a 2-to-1 endorsement for both of these requests. And I don't know if you all have a copy of that.
It was in our package.
You should. And then I will defer to the wisdom of our clerk, whether I should move these separately or together.
I'd probably do it separately.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so then I will move that the Easthampton City Council endorse to the state legislature the request from Popcorn Noir for an over quota liquor license.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to endorse an over quota liquor license for Popcorn Noir. Are there any further comments on this motion? Councilor Psychowski?
Yes, I'm going to abstain from the vote for this for the simple reason. I will support any business that comes to Easthampton, and I hope that they're successful. But what's bothering me right now, everything that's opening up lately is looking for a quasi liquor license. And the thing of it is, how many licenses are we gonna have in this town? I mean, I just think that right now it's a little bit out of control. And so I'm just gonna abstain from the vote, that's all there is to it. I just wanna make my point clear.
Any other comments, Councilor Hagan?
The comments I'm going to make are not just to Popcorn Noir, but also to Riffs, just so I don't have to repeat them. But as part of my duty as a precinct councilor, I did go out to the businesses that hold full quota licenses in my precinct and to get a sense of what they had to say. I personally will support it. I'll say that up front before I go, but I did want to say that, and I'll paraphrase what they said because the owners aren't here. But one was somewhat neutral, felt, yes, there is an expense, but he also welcomes business and he knows how hard it is to start a business these days, and he was somewhat neutral. The other owner was more against it. In fact, he was against it in not so much these businesses, but a little of what Councilor Psychowski said is he felt that we're now getting to a point of saturation. And where does it go from here for the city? Are we just gonna, anybody that comes in, he's worried about restaurants that maybe don't have the capitalization to really start up, and they might do it on a shoestring, and then they're in business a short time and they go out, and that during that time they're competition for the other bar owners. But I wanted to make their points clear. I'm not a businessman myself, so I did want to say that. I know and I caught a little of the hearings. I know they were a little contentious with talks of home rule. And I guess while I'll support these particular quotas, I just like to think maybe the city should take a look in an unconfrontational setting of what we want to do going forward is because I think we're starting to get to a point where you're going to be hard pressed for anybody that comes forward that wants an over quota license to not issue it to them. And again, I'm not saying that that might be the point that we want to take as a city. It might not be the point we want to take as a city. And I don't know exactly the venue that this could be sorted out, whether it would be the administration or the liquor board or maybe the council. But I just think it's an issue that as we go down and the city is obviously thriving, I think it's an important issue that we get out there. As people have said before, I know the value of these licenses. I know we're not Northampton. I don't want to compare to Northampton, but I did read a business going in there. New Irish Pub is going to pay $150,000 to get a quota license in Northampton. Now, again, I know that's a whole different animal, but there is value to these, and I just think it's a issue in the future that we should somehow try to get a handle on. And again, I will support these particular businesses. Thank you.
Any other comment on the motion?
I have one. I think approving over quota licenses is sending the wrong message to the community and to the youth of the community as far as drinking and the availability, the access, being able to walk into this building and that building, restaurant, or whatever, businesses, and just have liquor always available. I mean, the chances for them to get served mistakenly, I think increases a lot. There's a lot more, I think, that is applied to the people that hold licenses, liquor licenses, as far as the training and everything they go for. So I think I'm just going to oppose over quota licenses from this point forward until the city comes to some sort of agreement on what they want to do with it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the motion? Councilor McCoy?
Yeah, I think this might have been one of the first policies we worked on when I was first a city councilor, and as I remember, and Councilor Derby, you can probably correct me my memory here, actually the first license is free, right? Like, for instance, the one we just gave to the Indian restaurant, they don't pay for that, and it was just unfortunately the market after that creates a value of those that inflates them, and so the city has never charged for that regular license. And so on some level, I think we shouldn't be charging for this license because we didn't charge for the one that can be sold. And as Representative Sidebeck mentioned, in my opinion, Chen, there is a significant difference. I mean, these are limited to this spot. They can't take it and move to another place, and so there are some limitations to it. And so, I mean, I do think Councilor Hagan has a point that we do have to have a plan. Where do we want to end up? But certainly for me, I'm very comfortable at this level for both these places that would be great for Easthampton. And I think it just brings in more business. And I think probably addressing Chet's point about the underage drinking, I mean, I think there are safeguards in place from local laws and statewide laws about checking IDs and such. But so I think I will still support both of these.
Great. Any further comment on the motion? Councilor Ziegler.
Well, I just want to recognize too that we are talking about local businesses that have established themselves. And when we're talking about leveling the playing field with some of our neighboring communities that have many more establishments and many more businesses, I'd like to continue to see Easthampton remain business friendly and have the opportunity for those who've decided to start their business here in town to have that the same opportunity and the same draw into the community as our surrounding communities. So I am going to support the over quota.
Okay. Councilor Rist.
I just want to echo what the Councilor said just now. I am very much in favor of approving these, and I do see the problem that Councilor Ogilevitz brought up, and I think we need a plan moving forward. However, we do want our community, as I stated previously, to be a destination community. And the more restaurants that we have, the more businesses that we have that people can come to our city to enjoy, the more people will also come to enjoy our other businesses. And I'd like to see that happen. We become a tourist destination too. I think there are enough controls in place to prevent misuse of alcohol. I would like, but especially if a seasonal license can be granted without control, if I understand it, they just apply and you get it. And that's for a license without a couple of months. And this just is what happened here. We're extending it 3 or 4 more months. I find it hard to control this until something changes at the state legislature. So it's just gonna, in my view, we should support more businesses coming to the community, and we do have to work it out, but for now, we have to support it. Thank you.
Okay, any further comment? Councilor Hagan?
Just one quick comment, and Councilor Rist reminded me of it, is I know, and it was one of the reasons I was supportive of these, would be supportive of these, is they are already having a seasonal, so it's just a couple more months. And I don't really understand seasonal licenses in Easthampton. I understand them on a place like Cape Cod or Martha's Vineyard or out in Stockbridge or something. But, again, they do have it, it's a couple more months. But again, I was just talking in the future of some type of more cohesive policy. Thank you.
Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. So to speak to the underage drinking part, I think, I feel confident that, especially knowing that our police department, which is very competent, working with Spiffy, which is a great organization through the Hampshire Educational Collaborative, has just recently completed stings in Easthampton on having underage people go into establishments and trying to buy alcohol. So this is something that's active, that we are working on as a community, and I don't feel that having Popcorn Noir or Riffs having a liquor license that extends their ability to serve alcohol for a few months is going to be a danger to our children. So that being said, I also think we are in competition with our neighboring communities, and if it's the choice between staying in town or going to another community to spend your money, it would be great to have people stay in town. And I know that alcohol is one of the things that allows restaurateurs to make a little money. I think the food bottom line is pretty close. I think it's alcohol where a lot of the money is made. So that, having that is crucial for restaurants. So I think what we can do to help restaurants in our community is important.
Thank you. Everybody's had an opportunity. I'd like to actually give my opinion. A lot of this discussion applies to both. You just happen to be the first one on board. I will state this, when we sort of say open the floodgates on these above quota licenses, my concern is that the licensing board doesn't have some type of litmus test to at least apply some measure of control on this. So the floodgates are still wide open. And you heard similar concerns expressed by a number of councilors. So there is some interest there, not that I oppose these, but some interest in as we go forward to try to find some way to put some controls on these that are clear and concise and understandable to those that are applying. And I think the place that starts is the licensing board, the board that has the most authority and the most experience with these items. That said, I'll offer it up one more time for any further comment on this motion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
I'll have an abstention.
Objections?
Aye.
Okay, this needs a majority to pass. Okay, motion passes. Council Derby, second one, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move that the Easthampton City Council endorse the request from Lyman & Lyman Incorporated, also known as Riffs Joint, to the state legislature for an alcohol license.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to recommend the endorsement of an overquota license for Riffs Joint on Pleasant Street. Are there any further comments on this motion? Seeing that we have said everything we're gonna say on this particular issue, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections?
Abstention.
Objections?
Objection.
Okay, vote is the same. Motion passes. That concludes that one. The next one is the zoning ordinance amendment. Again,
All right,
Mr.
thank you,
Derby.
Mr. President. I don't know if this one will have as much spirited comment, but so we actually had a joint public hearing on September 25th with the planning board, and we looked at the changes that were being requested for section 11-12, which regards pre-existing non-conforming single-family or two-family residential structures. And basically what this allowed was for owners to, of the structures to make conforming changes without requiring them to spend the money to get a special permit. And after not a huge amount of debate or deliberation, we figured this made a lot of sense for people to be able to make their structure conforming and not require them to get a special permit, which I believe is $150. And so I see the planners here, so maybe she would want to speak to this as well.
Please state your name and city position.
Jessica Allen, city planner. Just a little bit of background on this amendment. Essentially, it's to help homeowners who come in who live on non-conforming lots, which means that their lot size or their frontage doesn't meet the current zoning standards, or if the structure violates a setback violation. Currently, the way that the zoning is drafted is these landowners need to go to the ZBA for a special permit in order to put on a conforming change, which means that the deck, the addition to the house, if it's within the setback requirements, it doesn't make the structure any more non-conforming. They need to wait a month to basically get on the ZBA agenda. They need to spend $150 for a special permit, and then they need to spend close to maybe $150 for legal ad. So, you know, it's a $300 cost and a month's wait time in order to put an addition onto a home that's not violating any additional zoning requirements. And so this is one small step to streamline the permitting process for those owners. Most of these non-conforming lots, a lot of them are in the plain section. There are old subdivisions that were built in the 60s and 50s, 60s, and 70s. There's also a large chunk of these properties off of West Street as well. So these are the homeowners that we see on a daily basis coming in to try to make changes to their structures and have to wait a month in order to do that in a cost to them. So this is putting the review process straight to the building inspector. If there is no not increasing the nonconformity of the structure, he has the ability with the zoning change in order to approve it and allow them to move forward with getting a building permit. If he foresees that they are going to be making the structure more nonconforming, it then goes back to the ZBA for a review. So the ZBA is not being cut completely out of the process.
Hey, before I open this up to the public, I have one question for you to clarify. In the current ordinance, if they're going to, if the changes are going to create a new nonconformity, do we approve it or deny it?
It goes before the ZBA for deliberation. They're made on a case-by-case basis, and it's up to the ZBA to determine how much that nonconformity is. It's up for them to judge if it's an alteration that's so much that it's creating a new nonconformity, or whether it's staying within the existing
The
nonconformity.
reason I ask is because the new one will only, for that same condition, just requires a variance. I
No,
don't
they still
understand
would.
the differences.
The variance would be for, well, the special permit would be if they are not making it more non-conforming, if they are staying with, it's hard to, all right. Let's back up. If somebody had a setback violation, the way that the current ZBA is sort of looking at this now, and again, a lot of these sort of depend on ZBA personalities, but if the nonconformity is sort of extending on the same plane as the existing nonconformity, to them, that's a special permit. If they're coming in and they want to go 20 feet more into the setback violation, that would require a variance. So with the planning
As of
department.
now, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So the planning department, we work with the applicants when they come in, and the building inspector. We talk to the applicants together to determine what's the best course of action for them under a permitting process.
Okay. That said, if there's anyone in the public who would like to come forward and speak to this issue, please step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Always good to hear from you. Name and address, please.
Mike Vasnick, 50 Payson Avenue. It seems. I just wanted you to know that I did look at this briefly. It'll have a minor impact on receipts because there is a receipt line for zoning boards, and the zoning permits are mostly these. But I'm still in favor of it. To be able to do conforming work on an existing non-conforming property seems only right. Especially the older buildings that don't have the kind of room around them or that were built prior to the zoning. A lot of the Plains, as Jessica said, was built in the late 60s and early 70s, right before zoning was fully enacted in Easthampton. And so the lots are substandard to begin with based on our current zoning. And so everything is non-conforming about the property, but if they want to put a deck on their house and it's going to go to the rear yard where there's plenty of room, I mean, why should they have to jump through the hoops? So I'm
Understand.
supportive.
Any other members of the public would like to step forward and speak to this issue? Please state your name and address for the record. Seeing none,
Just,
Council Derby, is there any comments or questions for Council Derby before he puts a motion on the floor?
I'll just make one comment. As I've been watching zoning for years in this town, this is one good step forward for the property owners in this community. Our zoning that we passed time and time again made these people non-conforming. And the thing of it is to give them some relief. It's way past due to help these people. And the thing of it is, this is only a small step, but it's a step in the right direction, and I hope we go further, and we need a whole new zoning, that's all there is to it. Okay, I quit.
Understand. I do have one question before you go forward on a motion. It's a simple one. When you look at the language, the old language had a requirement where it was the, basically it's requirement C. That actually puts some burden on the applicant to demonstrate their argument. In the new one, that goes away, it's all up to the ZBA. You're aware of that, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a pretty close relationship that happens in this process. So I think that in section C, the applicant would have to, but there would be that two-way communication anyway. So I think that that's going to be, when they're presenting, they're going to be presenting their information, and the building inspector is going to help them get all their ducks in a row. So I think that that's going to happen. While it's not required, I think that that's going to, still be in place. I don't know if that answers your question.
Any other questions?
Building commissioner, building inspector, what's the?
Well, there was actually some talk about what to use, and sometimes I think it was that there's not always a building inspector, and so using the building commissioner allowed there to be a little bit more flexibility there. Because if we said building inspector, then we would have to use our building inspector to approve it. I believe that's correct.
Mayor Mike, would you like to address the council? That's
What everyone refers to as the building inspector is the building commissioner. That's the
Okay,
correct
that's right.
title. We do have local inspectors, so the new name for the assistant is local inspector. So what we're used to, if we remember 10 years ago as building inspector is actually building commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Can I clear that up for you? Okay. Any other technical questions? Okay, hearing none?
Just two more things. This came recommended from the ordinance subcommittee 3-0, and it came recommended from the planning board 5-0.
Okay.
Okay. And so with that, I would move that the city council approve section 11-12 pre-existing non-conforming single-family or two-family residential structures as presented by the planning board.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to recommend approval of the proposed changes to section 11-12 of the zoning ordinance concerning pre-existing non-conforming single-family and two-family residential structures. Comments on this motion? Councilor Rist, you.
I just wanted to state, as I think the council is in favor of this, that as the mayor indicated, this strongly affects my district, which includes the, what has been called the Plains area, where there are a lot of non-conforming lots. And I think the residents in my constituency deserve this kind of relief. So I thank the planning board for bringing it forward, the planner especially, and the ordinance committee for reviewing it. It's great. Thank you very much.
Councilor Sakowski.
I just wanted a little bit of words on what Danny said. When those people bought in the Plains, they weren't non-conforming. We passed some zoning, then they became non-conforming.
That's, yeah.
Understand. Any further comment on the motion? I will state this, I can't express the number of angry phone calls I've gotten over the years on simple things like a deck in the backyard that people couldn't have or had to jump through hoops or pay enormous amounts of money for this type of construction. I think this, again, as to echo on the other councilors, is long overdue. Glad to see it come forward. I am fully in support of this. That said, are there any further comments on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions or objections? None, motion passes. Councilor Hagan.
The final public hearing tonight is relative to tax classification. What this is, it's required by Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 56, to determine the percentage of local tax levy to be borne by each class of real property as defined by General Law, Chapter 59, Section 2A, and personal property for the fiscal year 2012. The policy decisions available to the City Council include, but are not limited to, adopting a single tax rate applicable to all property, or adopting a two-tiered tax, one rate for commercial and industrial property and a different rate for residential and open space property. We currently use what's called a factor of one, which is the single tax rate applicable to both properties, both residential and business. I know the assessor's here, and I guess I would open it up to the assessor to answer any councilor's specific questions about what we have now and what the other options would be if we so
Please
choose.
step forward, state your name and city position for the record, please.
Mark Demaro, Principal Assessor.
Thank you.
The city has always traditionally has voted for a single rate, or factor of one. And that is basically because of the percentage of residential as compared to the percentage of commercial industrial in town.
Okay. Any technical questions for the principal assessor on this issue? I have only one comment, and it's, I'm still trying to get a grasp of your best estimate on what the actual increase for $1,000 evaluation might be this coming year for 2.5, if you have any idea.
Well, it's gonna be at least.
Not the certified number, I know we don't have that.
Yeah, I mean, guessing, I mean, you're gonna add about 80 cents, I think, for the high school. Probably another 30, 40 cents for the budget.
And then we don't know the impact of
Of the
what's on the
over.
election.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments for the principal assessor before I let him go? No. Seeing none, I'll open this up to the public. Is there any members of the public who'd like to come forward and address the council on this issue? Seeing none, Councilor Hagan.
Just before I make a motion, I just make two additional comments. One, this passed the subcommittee on a 3-0 vote in favor of keeping the factor of one, which we currently have. And also, we received the minutes from the Board of Assessors meeting of September 26th, in which the Board of Assessors also recommended that we keep the tax classification as a factor of 1. With all that said, I'll make the following motion. I move that the City of Easthampton set a factor of 1 for the fiscal year 2013 tax rate, keeping a single tax rate for all classes of property, and to not grant an open space discount, nor a residential exemption, nor a small commercial exemption as recommended by the Board of Assessors.
Second. Okay. We have a motion on the table that was concerning our tax classification as previously read. Are there any further comments on the motion? Councilor Psychowski?
This is tradition that we do every year, so it's proper.
Okay. I have one, and that is to kind of indicate that compared to some of our surrounding communities, this is one of the most business-friendly things we actually do in this community, is to keep that factor of 1. Any further comments from any of the councilors? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes.
Move the public hearings be closed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to close the public hearings. All those in favor?
Aye.
That said, we move on to committee reports. We ended up with ordinance, Councilor Derby.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Mr. President. I just noticed on our agenda that we need to ask for an extension for your request to review the special permitting process. So I'm gonna, because I'd like to get that taken care of soon, I'm going to move that we get a 30-day extension.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to extend the request to review the special permitting process for 30 days. Any comment on the motion? Councilor Hagan?
I only have one, and I'll speak for the chair. He certainly can speak for himself, but I know Councilor Cobb is going to be absent. I don't know if you're going to need him during the time that you're requesting it, or if he's already submitted all his due diligence.
I will say after October 30th, I will give you my cell phone number and you can reach me by cell.
There we go. Sounds good.
Okay, any other comment? Okay, that said, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? None? Okay, passes. Councilor Derby, you still have the floor.
Very good. And I have not set our next meeting yet, but that will be coming shortly, where we will discuss the zoning amendment of keeping chickens, Councilor Psychowski's request for the stretch code and over 55 housing, and Councilor Cobb's request to review the special permit process. So that will be at our next meeting, which will be posted shortly.
Okay.
And that concludes my hearing.
That said, property, Councilor Psychowski?
No business.
Okay. As we head on down the line, under new business, Councilor McCoy, we have an appointment.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion to move the mayoral appointment of Joseph Rosenblatt for the Development and Industrial Committee to appointments.
Do I have a second? Who seconded?
Second.
Sam.
Okay. We have a motion on the table to recommend the current appointment of Josh Rosenblatt to the Development and Industrial Committee with a term expiration of 12/31/14 to appointments for consideration and review. Any comment on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Motion passes. Again, Councilor McCoy, I ask you to take up the couple gifts here we have.
Yes, as the mayor had mentioned earlier, we have to officially accept the gifts that we were so graciously been benefactors of. The first one are the two bears that were mentioned, the artist bear and the Dia del Orso Muerto bear. So I would like to make a motion to accept the gifts pursuant to MGL Chapter 44, Section 53A, the two following bears.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to accept the artist bear and Dia del Orso Muerto bear pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A. Any further comment on this motion? Hearing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Councilor McCoy.
Okay, thank you. And we are also, as the mayor alluded to, benefactors of a terrific amount of furniture from Easthampton Savings Bank. So I'd like to make a motion to accept pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, approval is hereby given for the acceptance of the following gifts to the City of Easthampton from Easthampton Savings Bank: 13 desks, 9 file cabinets, 3 tables, 1 storage cabinet, 10 chairs, and 2 lamps. That was in a form of motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the table for the acceptance of gifts concerning the aforementioned furniture pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A. Are there any further comments on this motion? I do have one quick one, and that's a shout out to say thank you to the Easthampton Savings Bank, and we're always looking for more. That said, any further comment? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? None? Thank you. Counselor Hagan.
We have several supplemental appropriations. I'll start with the first one, dated October 4th, 2012. We have the following request for a supplemental appropriation signed by all the appropriate authorities. The amount requested is $255,000 to be appropriated from taxation. In that amount, $255,000 to be appropriated to school net spending in the amount of $255. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to provide additional resources to the school department in the current fiscal year, subject to the voter approval of November 6th override. What this is just, if the override were to pass, this would just be the amount needed, I believe, to get them to the first of the year. If the override does not pass, it would be a moot point. I also would like to set a public hearing for this item, which on November 7th, 2012.
Second.
Okay, after our first reading, we have a recommendation a motion on the floor to set a public hearing for the aforementioned supplemental appropriation request in the amount of $255,000 to be appropriated from taxation and to be appropriated to school net spending, to provide additional resources to the school department in the current fiscal year, subject to voter approval of the November 6th override. All those in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections or abstentions? Okay. To save some time, you want to read them all and then move them all to, or are you going to set
Sure.
public hearings on a couple of
I got to set a couple public hearings on 2 more, and then I'll do the other 3.
And then we'll make one motion.
Make one motion, right.
Okay.
Next one is dated October 3rd, 2012. Request is hereby made for the approval of the following appropriations. Requested amount is $250,000 to be appropriated from free cash to be appropriated to refund interest, the amount of $30,000, overlay 2009, the amount of $20,000, overlay 2010 in the amount of $50,000, overlay 2011 in the amount of $60,000, and overlay 2012 in the amount of $90,000. The amounts requested will be used for the following purpose: to provide for the funding of 4 years' deficit balances in the property tax refund overlay reserve. I'd like that moved to the Finance Committee, and also I would like to request in the form of a motion that we hold a public hearing on this matter for November 7th, 2012.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to recommend a public hearing on the aforementioned supplemental appropriation request of $250,000 as previously detailed for 11/7, 6:15 in these chambers. Is that correct? Okay. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Okay, any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, that motion passes. We'll use one motion to move them all to committee for review.
Okay. The third one, I'm going to go down to the bottom of the list, supplemental appropriation dated October 11th, 2012. Request is hereby made for the approval of following appropriation. Requested amount $235,365 to be appropriated from CPA taxation in the amount of $235,365 to be appropriated to CPA budgeted reserve in that same amount, $235,365. The amounts requested will be used for the following purpose: to set aside CPA receipts for further appropriation. Like the other two, I'd like to set a public hearing on this matter for the November 7th, 2012 meeting at 6:15 in these chambers.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to set a public hearing on this supplemental appropriation request of $235,365 from CPA taxation to CPA budgeted reserve. All those for 11-7 at 615 in East Chambers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, that motion passes.
I have three more appropriations. First one dated October 3rd, 2012. The amount requested, $48,642 to be appropriated from free cash, and that amount, $48,642, to be appropriated to school net spending expense. The amounts requested will be used for the following purpose: to fund the estimated cost of energy-efficient lighting improvements for the 4 school buildings. The next appropriation is a supplemental appropriation, is dated October 3rd, 2012. Request is hereby made for the approval of the following appropriation. Amount requested, $8,683 to be appropriated from free cash in the amount of $4,086, and retained earnings in the amount of $4,597 to be appropriated to highway energy expense in the amount of $4,086. Wastewater treatment energy expense in the amount of $2,928, and water energy expense in the amount of $1,669. The amounts requested will be used for the following purpose: to fund the estimated cost of energy efficient lighting and improvements in the 4 DPW facilities. And the final supplement, first reading of a supplemental appropriation dated October 10th, is hereby request made for the following appropriation. The amount requested, $10,250 to be appropriated from CPA Open Space Fund in the amount of $10,250 to be appropriated to the Lauren Farm APR in that same amount, $10,250. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to support the acquisition of an agricultural preservation restriction on the property owned by Ron and Carol Lauren. I'd like to make a motion that all 6 supplemental appropriations be moved to the Finance Subcommittee.
Second.
We have a motion on the table to move the aforementioned 6 supplemental appropriations to finance for consideration review. Any comment on this motion? All those in favor?
Oh, just one comment, if I could.
Counselor Hagan?
I moved 3 of them because they're, the first 3 are needed for the public hearing, are needed for the recap and have to be done in as fast a manner as possible after giving it a thorough hearing. And I didn't want to put any more additional public hearings for that night, because I know we also have a very important one with the insurance, the 32B insurance thing that Council Risk Committee is putting back. So that's why I had just 3 public hearings. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comment on the motion? That said, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections or abstentions? That's done. I'm up next. I'd like to make a quick announcement that I'm actually going to step down from the chair and will be away on medical leave for the next 2 to 3 months. For that reason, I have asked Councilman McCoy to step up and take my place as president while I am convalescing. And in order to take his place, what I'd like to do is take nominations on the floor for vice president. Are there any nominations for the floor? Councilor Ziegler first.
I'd like to nominate Councilman Derby.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have any other, do you accept the nomination first? I do. Okay, do we have any other nominations?
I'll
Councilman McCoy?
nominate Counselor Rist.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, do you accept the nomination, Councilor Rist?
I'm going to withdraw my name to give Councilor Derby a chance at the big time.
That's it?
Thank you,
Councilor
Councilor
Psychowski?
McCoy.
Nominate Counselor Hagan.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay,
I'll step aside for Councilman Derby. I could have supported either one of them, and I appreciate the nomination, Councilor Psychowski, and I think Salem's got longevity here on me, and I just I'll let him do it first.
For a couple months at least.
Right.
we have several good candidates. Given that said, all those,
You don't have to do that.
no, we don't have to, yeah, I do have.
One vote, you do
Yep,
it.
one vote. So that said, we have a nomination on the floor. We have a nomination in second. All those in favor of the nomination?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, no objections or abstentions? Congratulations, you have just become the Vice President Pro Tem.
Right.
I have one more announcement to make, and then I'm going to exercise basically Rule 11 of the Easthampton City Council, and I'm going to appoint as a voting alternate to the Finance Committee, Councilor McCoy, that now has that illustrious duty, given some of the important things before us. That said, I have no further items on the agenda. Could I have a motion to, Councilor Rist?
Having been there and having done that, I wish Counselor Cobb good luck with his hip replacement.
Thank you very much.
You'll feel much better when it's done.
Yeah.
You will be watching us, of course.
Yes, I will. And Council Derby will have my personal cell phone number.
Yes, we're wishing you well.
Thank you.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
I got a motion on the table to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Any objections or abstentions? Thank you very much. Good meeting, guys.
We have
For him.
Sorry.
Yep.